Namaste, everyone. Happy Friday. I am here for my second weekly Facebook Live. I'm really trying to get on a consistent schedule. It's so not easy for me. But anyway, the aim is every Tuesday and Thursday, although this is Friday, so here we are. Today's class, today's workshop, today's connection is really about the number one tool that we can develop, particularly if we find ourselves weighed down by our own self-criticism, even overwhelm, stress in general. But what one of my therapists, my teacher, Mona Miller, used to say, self-beat. When we find ourselves beating ourselves up and we find ourselves just mired in self-criticism, also in judgment of other people, so judgment of ourselves and judgment of other people. By the way, those of you that are on here, please jump into the comments and tell me where you're from and just jump in. And if you're liking this, please like it and share it. But I'm going to dive right in. So the tool that I've found and I've really been working on in my own life, particularly around my self-judgment and my judgment of other people, is to develop what's in Sanskrit known as karuna, or compassion. And compassion is one of the most useful tools that we can cultivate within ourselves. It's one of the most liberating tools that we can cultivate within ourselves. I was just watching a TEDx talk about the challenge of life. Like, it's natural for us to have challenging emotions. Life is difficult. Life is intense. There's stressors in life. That's normal. Living a meaningful life means that we're going to be stressed and we're going to be challenged. And so the tendency, because our mind has a negativity bias, meaning our mind tends to focus on the negative. It's the way that we're built. And part of that is the animal primal, what's called the reptilian brain of fight or flight. So we're always looking for that threat. We're always naturally, instinctually looking for the negative so we can protect ourselves. But what that means, if the mind has a negativity bias, is that we tend to focus and amplify the challenging experiences, situations in life, the challenging aspects of ourselves or someone else. We tend to focus on the negative. And one of the most crucial, important attributes for us to cultivate is compassion. And in the Sanskrit word for this is karuna. And this is actually, the Dalai Lama says this is the number one thing that we can do. In fact, his one of his quotes is, "Only the development of compassion and understanding for others can bring us the tranquility and happiness we all seek." So only the development of compassion and understanding for others can bring us the tranquility and happiness we all seek. So my teacher, Mona Miller, used to say, and I talk about her a lot in our Yoga Psyche Soul training and our Urban Priestess training, that the whole game is to move from judgment to understanding, to really stretching our capacity to understand how another person can be feeling, where they're coming from, closely aligned with empathy. But here's some tips for you to develop compassion. First and foremost, this is one of the 8 mindful attitudes, 8 attitudes of mindfulness. So we go over this a lot. I have a meditation teacher training coming up in September, and it's the 3rd module of the Yoga Psyche Soul training. And one of the big tenets that we work with in it's meditation, mindfulness, and neuroscience. And it's a teacher training of how to start leading meditation, also just for you as a practitioner to deepen your meditation. But one of the things we focus on is the 8 attitudes of mindfulness. Compassion is one of the 8 attitudes of mindfulness. And within compassion, probably the first tenet is to cultivate self-compassion. So to really have a tenderness and a softness towards ourselves. When we fuck up, when we make mistakes, when our weaknesses are revealed, the tendency of our ego is to protect ourselves, and the most useful thing we can do is really soften, open up, acknowledge our weaknesses, our mistakes, and have compassion, and not beat ourselves up, and not shame ourselves, but then take an action that's going to create a solution, create a change. So soften your attitude towards yourself. It's not dissociating, it's not making excuses, it's not getting defensive, it's just coming from the heart and softening. So self-compassion is so, so important. Only when we develop these skills towards ourselves, love, compassion, understanding, can we then extend it to other people. So the second tip for you in developing compassion is to reach out. Reach out with genuine concern and genuine empathy, genuine compassion for another person. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've been going through a really intense firestorm and personal, professional experience, and it was somewhat public, and it was really interesting to see who reached out to me personally, who was just making comments online, and who was sort of jumping into this mob mentality, and who of my colleagues and friends actually took the time to reach out and text me personally or send me a Facebook message. And to be honest, it was really interesting. So many of you know the story, but our Urban Priestess, we were doing an online summit, and we got a lot of criticism that it wasn't diverse enough and didn't highlight enough women of color, which was true. And so we pulled the summit down, and we're doing a lot of inner work for that. And there were a couple of threads on Facebook that generated a lot of heat, and rightfully so, and very important information and perspectives that we were learning from. Very humbling. But one of the things I found interesting was there were actually very few people who reached out to me personally. Many people I saw commenting or sharing, and there were only a handful of people, many people that I know that were commenting and sharing. Only a handful of them actually reached out personally with a genuine concern and reaching out from their hearts and with an open heart. And so we have to be very mindful of that we're not just jumping on the bandwagon or judging a book by its cover. And so important to go that extra mile and reach out to people with a genuine concern. When you know someone's going through a tough time, whatever, it might be a health concern, a financial, marital issue, actually taking the time to reach out and send them a text, send them a message, better yet a voicemail, or call them actually on their phone. I'm trying to really bring back the phone call. So I'm on a mission to bring back personal connection on phone calls. And just send them a sweet message and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm really feeling this for you, and I'm here for you. And in any way that I can support you, let me know. That goes so far, and it's very healing to the heart. So again, soften perception, but reaching out in connection. Number 3 for developing compassion is start by being receptive. Start by softening. Start by listening. So again, our tendency in our ego is to always jump ahead and to jump in and defend ourselves or figure out the solution or kind of be right. And compassion is really that more feminine approach. It's a softened approach of listening, focusing first, as Zig Ziglar says, on understanding another person, really stretching yourself to understand where they're coming from. What are they actually saying? Practice this with your kids. Practice this with your lovers. That's like the number one place probably most of us get really tripped up with our beloveds. So hear what they're saying. Listen to what they're saying. Maybe even take it overnight or a day or two before you respond, so that you really listen and you start by receiving what's coming in. You start by giving them the space and holding the space for their experience, then reaching out and moving forward. But first, just start with the tenderness and holding that space for someone else. So listen fully. Listen, as Diane Ackerman says, listen athletically. Listen with your whole heart. And then finally, speak from your heart. So come from that place of your heart connection. Of course, the word courage means with heart, having heart. So simply saying, as I mentioned before, reaching out with genuine concern, speaking from your heart. Hey, I imagine I can only imagine, or I can't even imagine. And I'm so sorry, and I understand. And, how can I support you? Speaking from your heart, really coming from that genuine place. So, what really works for me is putting myself in someone else's shoes, really walking a mile in their shoes, and extending that generosity of spirit, extending that understanding before you take action, before you jump to conclusions, before you make assumptions. Start by stopping. So have compassion, create more spaciousness and tenderness for yourself, for your loved ones, for this world. Life is intense. It's challenging. It's not going to change. That's the way it is. This is the game we're playing. And cultivating compassion for yourself, self-compassion. One thing that helps me is just putting my hand on my heart. And there's a tool that we use in yoga psychology of just some mantras, some good parent messages, or what they're called, from integrated body psychotherapy. And just, I love you. I want you. You are special to me. And I literally say these things to myself, like, you know what? It's okay. I love you. So that we don't get into this self-beat and self-shame. We take 100% responsibility, but we don't have to beat ourselves up for it, right? For our mistakes, for our weaknesses, for our confusion. So compassion for yourself, extend that compassion, move from judgment to understanding, and just notice how it shifts the field between you and someone else. Notice how you feel physically when you just soften your approach towards yourself, how someone else responds. And really sending you all so much love and compassion, and just softening our attitudes towards ourselves, letting go of our perfection, allowing us all to be human and be walking each other home. So sending you all so much love. Thank you so much. Please share this if this has been helpful. If you find just this little tip of cultivating compassion and self-compassion, share this or tag someone below that you think could use this. Tag someone below that you could be more compassionate with. Let them know you're working on it. And I will see you next Tuesday and Thursday, 12 noon Pacific time. I will be right here. Tuesday, Thursday, Ask Ashley. You can always add a comment and let me know other subjects, things that you really want to hear about. What is your biggest challenge? I want to know. I want to know you. Thank you so much. Namaste.